To ask me anything about politics. This is the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics and you don't got to worry about getting judged or roasted or debated or anything like that. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show for debating or harassment. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I know there's a lot of really popular shows out there where Democrats and Republicans yell at each other and call each other names and try to prove that one of them is smart and the other one is stupid, and you try to own each other. Everybody's trying to get owned on those shows, but that is not what this show is. This show is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So if there's something that you want to know about politics, then just throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. Def Me says, congrats on the ceasefire, man. I mean, I suppose, I suppose this is the best outcome we could have probably hoped for, but the strait is still closed because Iran is mad at Israel. Um, you know, I really want to hear about all of the service members that traveled over there returning over here so that we don't have like a standing military just in the ocean waiting to invade Iran. But yeah, this is obviously better than war crimes and shit like that. John Bradley says, did you see the emergency injunction that's been filed to prevent nukes being used in Iran? No, I have not seen that emergency injunction. That is interesting. Actually, says, how long did the ceasefire last? I believe it was minutes. It was something like hours. But yeah, I don't know what's going on there right at this very moment, but there is still, shooting and missiles happening in that area, and I believe Iran just reclosed the strait because of some military action that Israel was doing. Okay, German-Iranian alliance says true Americans like myself are supporting Iran. I mean, it's a difficult line to tread there, German-Iranian alliance, because it's like the Iranian government is not good and the American government is not good. So it's like I want to support the civilians of both countries, but the governments of both countries are both bad faith actors and liars. Muzz King, Triska, and D. Scott, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. JBH Win says, so you stand with Trump or Kamala? I mean, it's a weird question because it's not like Kamala is currently running for president against Donald Trump or anything like that. But I definitely was a I definitely was a Kamala Harris voter in 2024. German-Iranian alliances. Let me rephrase, we stand with the Iranian people. Yes, I agree with that. Kick says, rule of thumb, be on the opposite side of Israel. Generally, depending on who's in charge of the government over there. Sam says, lately my TikTok's getting more and more right-wing. How do I fix it? So I don't know how much the algorithm is, being manipulated by the owners. But oftentimes, if you are not a right-wing person, they might show you right-wing content to try to get you to fight in the comments and try to get you mad. So my suggestion, just scroll past it as quickly as you possibly can. Hopefully you can teach the algorithm that is not what you want. John Abbott says, from what I have seen, the ceasefire technically still in place between the U.S. and Iran. It's only Israel and Iran still fighting, but Israel never signed on to the ceasefire. Anyways, that does seem accurate. All right. Clean Fresh Edit says, should Democratic politicians associate with Hassan Piker? I think that we can do the smart thing of supporting Hassan, but being critical of the things that it's important to be critical about Hassan for. I have heard that he has said some very controversial things in the past. I don't know what any of those are. I need to look that up. But he was recently just said that if Gavin Newsom wins the primary for the presidential election in 28, then he's just not going to vote. He's going to vote third party, and that is a wildly irresponsible thing to say. It's for somebody that is that popular. So I do think that the Democratic Party needs to do more work of embracing people like Hassan, people on the progressive left, young people, people who have like, a passionate base behind them. But that doesn't mean that you have to, condone or even, what's the word I'm looking for? Or champion everything that he has ever said. John Cato says, who do you think's going to win governor of California? I've got no idea, but I'm supporting Katie Porter. iPop says, I don't have anything real ask, but I hope you all have a nice day. I hope you do too, iPop. Nate Debate says, Hassan is not an honest or genuine person. That's being said, his platform is too big to ignore. I don't know that he's not an honest or... I don't know that he's not an honest or a genuine person. KevDev says, W. Hassan quote. Are you referring to the I'm not voting for Gavin Newsom in the general? Because no, that is not a W quote. That is an L quote. More Cecil says, what's going on with the ceasefire? Technically, it is still in place between the U.S. and Iran, but it is not. There's still tons of fighting going on in that region. Andrew Holman says, do you think Trump is more so America first or Israel first? I think Trump is more so Trump first. Nate Debate says, he yesterday doubled down on everything would be the same if Kamala won. Who? Hassan? Hassan said that? Because that is, again, a wildly irresponsible thing for him to say. The frustrating thing about people like Hassan are like, I probably agree with him on 99% of his political beliefs, but the fact that he's going to make news attacking the Democratic Party, attacking quote unquote, perceived centrists or corporate Democrats, that's an issue. That is a big fucking issue. Ryan says, what's the difference between a Democrat, a leftist, and a liberal? So not every leftist or liberal is a Democrat. And not every Democrat is, but I think you could probably say that every Democrat is either a leftist or a liberal. Liberals tend to be associated with the more centrist and moderate wing of the Democratic Party, and leftists tend to be more associated with the far left wing, progressive side of the Democratic Party. Matt says, USA should have more options for parties to vote for. Yes, but without ranked choice voting, all of those other parties will only be spoiler candidates. So we need ranked choice voting. The only way to get ranked choice voting is to vote for Democrats, because Democrats are open to ranked choice voting. Republicans are hostile to it. Sub America says, AMD, everything else is considered evil to them. I don't know what that means. Zekidu says, who you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Bitneva says, yesterday, 30 minutes before the Iran deadline, a group pumped billions into the crypto market. How interesting. Did the ceasefire affect the crypto market? I don't see how that would. Kimberlina says, what is far left versus left? Like the level of social programs, question mark? I guess it just depends on how, quote unquote, extreme your positions are. Like somebody who believes that the Democratic Party itself is too centrist or corporate and that it needs to be torn down, I would say that that's like an extreme left-wing person. How aggressive you want to be with the changes that you want to make to the government, you could probably be called an extreme leftist. If you're somebody who believes that better is better and worse is worse, so it's better to vote for a moderate Democrat than any Republican, you could be labeled by the extreme left as a liberal. So, it's squishy. These definitions are not, it's not a science, it's an art. Joey G says, when will Congress get off their asses? When we vote out the Republicans who are currently in charge of Congress. The reason why Trump is able to get away with everything that he's getting away with, all of the illegal activity, the war crimes, the corruption, the cryptocurrency, the selling political pardons, the detention centers, enabling ICE and cutting programs that do cancer research and shit like that, is because everybody who could hold them accountable for that is a Republican right now. And they're not going to, because Republicans are party over country. All right. Tim's IJ Bring says, what do you think of Republican Thomas Massie? I mean, you have to grade every Republican on a curve because, if you are Thomas Massie and you are, championing releasing the Epstein files and trying to not send any more money weapons to Israel and fighting against Trump starting wars in Iran, then you're definitely like the best Republican. But at the same time, you are voting for all of Trump's nominees and you are voting for the big, beautiful bill, which was a massive shift of funds from the poor to the rich, like reverse Robin Hood. So it's like, yeah, he still sucks, but he just sucks a lot less than all the other ones. Sup America says Democrats seem to hate us. Democrats seem to hate who? Democrats also scrolling up. Democrats lost me from the constant anger they possess. I do not believe that that's a real thing. Sup America. I do not believe that Democrats are hateful. What have Democrats done to gain my vote? I don't care about Trump, but why Democrats? I'm happy to go into more detail on that, Sup America. Are you still here? And everything is considered evil to them. I don't know what you mean by that. Yeah, Sup America, let me know. Ryan says, Democrats lost me when they started being hateful towards whites. Democrats are not hateful towards whites. Ryan, Enlightened Mahogany says, Dems are commies. They are not. Let's see here. Hit Toxic. Hi, Toxic says, any opinion on Mamdani? I think he's great. Enlightened Mahogany says they definitely are. No, they're not. You are in question jail. Ask a question or you're going to get booted. Mad says, different votes are just not possible as long Trump and such are presidents. Seems kind of dictatorship. There are still mechanisms by which we are able to control Trump's attempts at being a dictator. We should make no mistake about this, that Trump is trying to be a dictator. He is acting as though he's a dictator. He is doing his best to try to wrest dictatorial control of the American government from, the people and Congress. But it is not game over. He does not have full dictatorial control yet. Triska, Muzz King, Chili Willy, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. All right, let me get into some of these comments. Alex says both partners are hateful. That is not true. Enlightened Mahogany says no, he's not. So that's not a question. I warned you. You're out of here. Ryan says, who do you think the Democrat nominee for 2028 will be? I have no idea. I think Democrats should run the table 26 before we start worrying about 28. So everybody go out there and do the work to elect Democrats in 26. If I had my druthers, the nominee would be Chris Murphy. I think he's great. Matt says, how long could Trump theoretically be president for if everyone voted for him? I guess until he's dead. Alex says, it's not true because you have a bias, but they are the same toilet, different color. That is not true, Alex. I do not have a bias, and it is not true that Democrats and Republicans are the same. Would you like me to go into more detail about the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party? I am happy to give you that information. All right. Bench Boy says, who do you think Newsom's top 2 VP options would be? I have no idea. Carperf says, do you vote Trump? No, I do not. Never have, never will. Hot Toddy says, Murphy is good. I agree. I love Chris Murphy. Amanda Sexton says, totally the same toilet, different color. That is inaccurate, Amanda Sexton. Would you like me to tell you why it is inaccurate? And you are in question jail, Amanda. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Sup America says, nope, Democrats have been giving me death threats for years. I find that very hard to believe, Sup American. You are in question jail as well. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Knox says, why is fascism on the rise all over the world? Have we lost our fucking minds? So I do not believe that this is an organic thing that is happening, Knox. I believe that this was a extremely well-funded and well-planned propaganda campaign that has been that has its focal point in the billionaire class. So billionaires recognize that their power is in authoritarian governments. And so they will be able to be more corrupt and they will be able to assert more control over the population and, be able to be the new kings and queens in a new billionaire-ish aristocracy if they're able to convince people that voting for these right-wing figures is the better move. And again, they've been very, very successful because rich people have a lot of money and resources and power. And so, we have to do the work of undoing all of that shit. I'm hoping that the people in Europe who are watching what Trump is doing will learn from our mistakes and start moving away from these far-right parties. we're already sort of starting to see glimmers of that. But this billionaire-funded movement is not going to go away without a massive, effort by we the people. Okay, Quixote says, what do you think of China if you had to choose more positive or negative view? I mean, I do think that there are things that the Chinese government has been able to accomplish that are incredible, but the fact of the matter is that it is a suppressive authoritarian government. Like ask the Uyghurs, ask anybody who believes in that thing that happened with the guy standing in front of the tank. Excuse me. Knox says, what's the best way to fight the brainwashing that so many far right seem to just be easily convinced by? I think we need to be the best version of the left, meaning not getting into fights with people. And we need to talk to people in real life because first of all, you never know if somebody you're talking to on the internet is real. You could just be wasting your breath talking to a brick wall that is located in some bot farm in Russia or India or China or whatever. So talking to people in real life is key for that as well. But yeah, it is about every single one of us being a messenger against the right-wing billionaire-funded propaganda network. And if we do this enough in person, then hopefully we can phone tree our way back to a normal collective consciousness. Sup America says, everyone wrong but progressive. You dismissed real threats made against me by Democrats. So none of those are questions, Sup America. I did warn you, so now you're out of here. Right. Josna says, opinion on Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Very happy to see more Democrats winning those seats. Big Boy Job Parker says, would you like to see Jefferson Schumer removed from leadership? Yes, 100%. Yes, cannot say strongly enough. They are not meeting the moment. Alex says, host is cool, but I never had confidence in the two political party system. That is a totally fair criticism to have of the two political party system, Alex. But again, if you want, our politics to be open to other parties, the best way to do that is with something like ranked choice voting, which the Republican Party is hostile to and the Democratic Party is open to. So where all of these things are concerned, the best way for the kind of change that we all want is through the Democratic Party. So we have to support the Democrats. All right, Matt says the Danish Democratic Party just won, but the Trump-like party earned 1,000 more votes since last. So yeah, the work continues, Mads. That is a good sign, at least, that the Danish Democratic Party won. All right, Peace Signs says, are you liberal? I consider myself a progressive Democrat. I would say that that's a leftist political philosophy. Benchboy says, Ossoff is king. If he decides to run 2028, he will win. Maybe. Nobody knows that, but... Ryan says, do you use Ground News? How do you get your news? I do use Ground News. I use the Reddit news feed as well, and I listen to a lot of political podcasts. William Prater says, Democratic Party has not hammered the Republican Party enough for so many different policies. I generally would agree with that, William Prater. I will say that the Democratic Party has a lot of politicians that are hammering the Republican Party enough for so many of their policies, but that a lot of the incentive structures for the Democratic Party make it very difficult for them to fight probably in the way that they want to fight. And I can speak more about that if you like, William Prater. Hot Toddy says, Heritage Foundation runs Republicans. It's all about the money. That is accurate. Alex says, host, do you do box requests with other creators on here? I don't know what a box request is, Alex. Ivan Cisco says, so I heard Pam Bondi is off the hook with the Oversight Committee. That could be challenged. It is possible that those challenges might not exist unless Democrats win the midterms, but I don't think that she's fully out of the woods. But when you are one of many pawns in an authoritarian regime, then yeah, sometimes they do shitty things like let you off the hook for all of the various shitty things that you've done. Cressida Forsyth says, when will gas prices drop? Probably not for a long time. Mia says, do you think Democrats are going to win the midterms? There's a couple of things to keep in mind there, Mia. I do think that if the election is completely free and fair, then I believe that Democrats are going to fucking have a massive win going into 2026. They've been crushing in all of these special elections, so it really does seem like Democrats have the wind at their backs. Not all because people love them, but mostly because people are just so upset about Trump and what he's doing. The issue is that Trump and the Republican Party have a lot of power right now to try to do things, to try to suppress the vote, cheat, lie, steal their way into victory. And so we have to do a lot of work to make sure they don't get away with that. We have to make sure that this election is that these that these election wins are too big to rig. Knox says, would you agree? I find that younger generations are fighting the far right while most elders don't. I don't generally agree with that, Knox. Like, I've been to every No Kings protest, and I see tons of old heads, people like myself, who are out there on them streets doing the work, doing the fighting. Old people generally have more time on their hands, like when they're retired. So they're doing the work. Also, every time I go and door knock for political campaigns, it's mostly old people. People like myself. Alex says, I mean the guest requests. It is. I do accept guest requests sometimes, Alex, but I am mercurial about it and random about it. So if that is something that you're interested in, then stick around and maybe you'll get lucky. Oscar says, what's your opinion on free markets and planned economies? I don't really know what you mean by planned economies, but free markets need to be regulated. Otherwise, it is crony capitalism or authoritarianism of the billionaire class. Muzz King, Chili Willy, and Triska, thank you for helping me reach my third gift goal today. That means that we are on to finger hearts, the best part of every day. All right, Chad Bitson says, have you watched the Artemis 2 conversation where they ignore Trump? Oh my God, gold. No, I didn't know that. That's really funny. I want to check that out. Okay, OB Dan says, are the Democrats winning or is it the Republicans just doing bad? I would say it's probably a little bit of both, OB Dan. It is true that the Democratic Party is not more popular now, but it is true that there is more enthusiasm behind voting for Democrats because there's like an enthusiasm gap, I would say. And people who would be independent voters or squishy Republican voters, some of them are going to be voting for Democrats as a check on the Republican Party and the Trump administration. So, if you had to ask me like which one it is more, I think people are more upset with Trump and Republicans than they are excited about voting for Republicans. D. Scott, Triska, and Jose, thank you so much for helping me reach my first finger hearts goal of the day. We are really cooking on these goals today, everybody. GS says, thoughts on Russia as a country. I support the people. I do not support the government. D. Scott says, more progressives are winning, not so much centrists, which is interesting. I love to see that. D. Scott, more please. Alex says, my grandfather would believe in Trump even with evidence showing he sucks. LOL. Yeah, some old people, their brains are cooked. They're suffering from the lead poisoning they got when they were kids. Some of them, their noodles are cooked from watching Fox News 24/7. But there are lots of young people whose brains are cooked from listening to Joe Rogan and Andrew Schultz tell them that they should vote for Republicans in 2024. All right, Waco Mine says, what is the likelihood of previous presidents who apparently have immunity from the laws as well, fulfilling their oath to protect people from all threats, foreign and domestic? I'm not really sure if I know what you mean by that question. So previous presidents doing something to fulfill their oath to protect. So you're saying like you think that because previous presidents have immunity that they should do like illegal shit to try to stop Trump? Like I think that's a really bad move. But yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that previous Democratic presidents are either too old or too reasonable to do something like that. Week of Mine also asks, what is so good and great that it mandates the balance being continued to tip towards the favor of the villainous? I'm afraid you're going to have to be more specific there, Waco Mind. All right. Ryan says, what's so bad about Joe Rogan's podcast? The issue with Joe Rogan's podcast is that people listen to him. Not like listen to his podcast. Like if you want to hear about, like MMA and fun interviews with stand-up comedians and shit like that, like that's fine. But people take advice from him. And when he says that he thinks the move is voting for Trump and Republicans in 2024, people listened to him. And he will tell you that he is not the kind of person who should have that power. And other stand-up comedians that know him, I don't know him personally, I just know people that know him, will tell you that he believes he should not have that power and he should not have that power. I find it, on a personal note, I think it's I think it's God, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just like so unbelievably fucking irresponsible and hypocritical that he would do that, that he would endorse Trump and Andrew Schultz would endorse Trump, because the thing about stand-up comedians, and I, being one, I feel like I have some authority to talk about this, is that for the past couple of decades, we have been getting our D's S and S'ing our own D's about how we are the outsiders and we're the ones who challenge authority and we're the ones who see through the bullshit of everybody's just kind of going through life like these mindless sheep, and we're the philosophers who are stepping back and seeing like what's really going on there. And so these guys who are at the top of fucking comedian mountain, like the king philosophers of this new regime, are the exact ones that got fucking tricked by the most obvious fucking con artist of all fucking time. Like, these guys were the ones advocating people to vote for Trump and Republicans. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, do you not have, like, these guys were saying that they weren't drinking the juice, but they were just brainwashed by a different social media than everybody else was. It's so fucking frustrating, to see that these people who share my badge, like we're both part of the same, company. These guys are generals. I'm more of a private in the military. I don't know how the ranks work, but they're high and I'm low. And they're fucking it up. They're fucking it up so hard for everybody. It just, it's frustrating, Waco Mind says, the USA is insolvent. Why should people continue to give the corporation money? I mean, if you don't pay taxes, you go to jail. Waco, that's the reason why. Casper Gorsey says, I do think that after these world tensions, there will come time of relief, or it will be worse. So if you read Steven Pinker's book, I think his name is Pinker, The Better Nature of Our Angels, about how human society is working away from violence and towards peace, the thesis that he posits in the book, and it's one that I also personally believe in, is that when you see these rises in global tension and wars and fighting and bombs being dropped, every armed conflict that America has been involved with, from World War I to present day, that is not because humans themselves want that and we desire that. It is because the powerful people are making that decision to do that. And so we can have a more stable global world that leans into peace, but we have to elect those people. And the people in Iran need to stand up and make sure that they are not being ruled by a violent theocracy. And the people in Israel need to stand up and vote for not far-right militaristic extremists like Netanyahu, and the people in Russia, and, et cetera, et cetera. Every nation is responsible for doing this. So yeah, as with all of these problems, it is, if we do the work of stopping it, then we stop it. Okay, Jackson says, it started with Jefferson and Tripoli. I don't know what that is. Mason says, Nigel Farage is really good. No, he is not. Okay, Zara De La Junti says, do you like the Austrian painter? No, I do not. Jared Berenstein does not like the Austrian painter, Zara. Mark says, do you believe in lowering taxes for the middle and working class? Yes, 100%. And raise it for the rich. OMC says, if the left-wing Democratic Party wins, the stock could be end? No, the stock market usually does better. The stock market and the economy generally do way better under Democratic administrations than Republican administrations. All of the issues that we are feeling right now, where we are all feeling the turning of the screw and the boots on our neck, all of that is because of Republican policies, of monopolization, of cutting regulations, of taxing the poor and tax cuts for the rich. Like, all of this goes away. Maybe not quickly and maybe not without pain, but all of this goes away under Democratic leadership instead. Okay, let's see here. Shinzo says, death penalty, yes or no? No. Sabsen says, did Israel is America? You'll have to clean up that question, please. I don't know what that means. Mark says, do you think there were any good policies of Ronald Reagan? Yeah, I mean, every shitty president has some, silver linings. So the silver linings get thinner and thinner the further along that we go. Nixon created the EPA. Ronald Reagan said that immigrants were the heart of America. George W. Bush said, Muslims are not responsible for 9/11. So yeah. Samson says, did Israel is controlling USA? Samson, I would love to ask you if English is not your first language. I'm not throwing shade. I am trying to learn a new language myself, so I know that it's difficult, but I'm just curious about your syntax. So yeah, Samson, Israel is not controlling the USA. Money is controlling the government because of things like Citizens United and extremely relaxed lobbying rules. Sophie says, should the 25th Amendment be used? Yes, it should have been used a long time ago. Samson says, I'm Hungarian. Oh, well, are you going to be voting in the upcoming election? And who do you like? Chrissy says, hello, sir. Did Obama or Biden do better in office? That's a really good question, Chrissy, and I don't have a good answer for you. I'll tell you what I think. I think that Biden had arguably the most progressive administration that we had since FDR. Now, Biden had the advantage of being white and also being president in 2020, as opposed to Obama, who was president in 2008, and was the first black president. So he was, hindered by fighting all of this kind of like conscious and unconscious racism and a sort of like, a Republican Party on steroids that was desperate to sort of like invalidate him. I think Barack Obama was an incredible communicator, and he bodied Biden in that sense. But if you're looking at like things accomplished, I might give it to the Biden administration. But again, like I don't think that either one of them is better than the other. I think that each one did the best they could with the hand that they were dealt. Waco Mind says, if money controls the government and the people must give the government their money or face jail time, is not jail time the more honorable choice? I cannot tell anybody that they should do that. That going to jail for your beliefs is the right thing to do. Like, jail is a fucking nightmare. And as somebody who's never personally been, and I hope I never do, I cannot say to people like, yeah, if I could go to jail for your beliefs, man, I can't tell you to not do that. I'm not going to stop you. I can't stop you if you're going to do that. But yeah, that's not everybody can make that kind of sacrifice. Waco Minds. Okay, Alex says Obama was one of the best well-spoken presidents ever. That is accurate, Alex. Yours says, would you pull it out for free health care? I don't know what you mean by pull it out. Is that like... It sounds like what you're saying is that pulling out is a sacrifice because it feels so much better to finish inside. And so you pull out for free healthcare, for universal healthcare, the same way that you would do like a fun run for cancer funding or some shit like that. Is that what you mean? Because if that's so, that's a very funny way of phrasing that. Alrighty, let's see here. Crazy Daisy says, do you think the hate towards Israel is rooted in anti-Semitism? That's a really good question, Crazy Daisy. I think it's a little bit of both. There are things that the current Israeli government has done that are very, very much worthy of hate. The unfortunate thing, though, is that some people use those very real things as a sort of like gateway drug into much more harsher anti-Semitism. Like, there's a reason why anti-Semitism has been on the rise, since 2015, and it's because far-right conspiracy theorists have viewed it as a valuable way of creating more division here in America. So yeah, I think that most of the hate is probably well-directed at the government of Israel as opposed to Jewish people, but there definitely is some of that in there, and you have to be really careful when you're talking about these criticisms of Israel, but because soon, if you talk to somebody for long enough, they might then just say the thing that's like, oh no, you're not like me. You think that every Jewish person is evil, but that's not the real thing there. William says, do you believe Bibi is our times AH? I think that's a little hyperbolic, but there are a lot of similarities between the things that Netanyahu has done to the people of Palestine and what AH did to Jews in the 1930s. Seb says, what would you say to debate Charlie Kirk if he was still alive? Um, I would say yes, but any debate that I would ever get into, I would basically start off with a little speech about how debates are stupid and the person next to me is going to lie, and the only way for me to win this debate is to accurately and succinctly call out all of those lies. If I don't have that information particularly memorized, then I technically lose the debate. Debating, you only win debates when you kind of quote unquote own somebody else. So that person could be lying their fucking tits off, but they appear better, but they're giving a better performance and they win. Like, that doesn't really seem productive. I also don't like the way that it kind of creates this spectator sport of politics, as opposed to, hey, why don't we all find some common ground here? Why don't we all try to parse through the bullshit and see what's actually going on, and then maybe we can all vote for the better people to lead us instead of the worst people. Alex says, how did Charlie get so rich? Well, that's a really interesting question, Alex. I've seen some reporting to suggest that he was platformed, astroturfed by the billionaire class, because he is a right-wing content creator who was doing the work of indoctrinating college-age kids to right-wing philosophy. But also, he sold merch, and I'm sure he was monetized on social media and stuff like that, and that's all extremely lucrative as well. Because and I want to. Whenever you criticize Charlie Kirk, you have to kind of like bookend it with like, political violence is bad, assassinations are bad. He shouldn't have gotten murdered. That was a bad thing. But he was a liar and a con artist. That's that was his whole fucking thing. Gringo says MAGA doesn't want to meet in the middle. So Gringo, I do think there's a difference between what I was advocating for and saying that we should meet people in the middle, because meeting people in the middle is you're basically just asking the people that you are negotiating with to push the Overton window so far to the right that the middle is now their actual position. And that has not worked out to the benefit of the Democratic Party. What we want to do is find the people who are operating in good faith. Like, there are MAGA people out there who you can bring back from the brink. It might take a lot of work and time and energy, but you can do it. But there are other people in the MAGA world who they only want to own the libs, and they don't care how wrong they are. They don't care how much worse their life gets. They just want to infuriate you and say wrong things and make you and rage bait you and shit like that. So just avoid those people. Look for the people who are operating in good faith. Like, I've got people, who are regulars to my live stream who describe themselves as MAGA. And, I don't know if I could credit myself with having pushed them any farther to the left, but it definitely seems like we're making some headway in what we're discussing, Sophie says, what's the point of the Iran war? It doesn't seem like there is a point to the Iran war. Let's see here. Crucifix, good to see you again, says, how's the war with Iran going? I mean, it's going as good as we can hope for right now, in that there is a quote-unquote ceasefire. But I believe the Strait of Hormuz is still closed because Israel is still attacking Iran. So prices are going to continue going up. We're looking at a potential recession because of oil shock. I believe we still have a whole bunch of battleships and, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of troops over there waiting to be deployed. So, it should be noted that Trump has striked Iran a bunch of times when he has said that we are in the middle of negotiations or we're in the middle of a peace plan. I think the best possible scenario right now is that Trump gets bored and decides to pull all of our troops out of there. That's the best possible scenario. Like, obviously, that would be a massive indictment on him, because what was this? This was a massive waste of human lives. This was a massive waste of our taxpayer dollars. It's like we can't have cancer research, but we can have $1 billion a day to murder fucking brown people in Iran. To what? To fucking accomplish what? So that we could kill the Ayatollah and get a younger, more extreme Ayatollah in exchange. But if we're looking for harm reduction, if we're looking for let's not let this escalate, then please, God, please just let Trump get bored of this and move all of our ships and our troops away from the Middle East. M. Hatley says, oil and greed, question mark? I mean, I think that's part of it. I think the pie of we decided to go to war with Iran is, you know, it's made of a bunch of different things, shall we say. I think that a a flattery and pressure campaign from people like Lindsey Graham and Netanyahu could also be part of it. I think that Trump loved the quote unquote positive press that he got from kidnapping Maduro in Venezuela. And so he's like, yeah, more of that, please. I think that there are certain people in his administration who are Christian extremists who believe that we need to annihilate Iran to bring about the rapture. You know, I think Pete Hegseth is fucking trigger happy for dropping a nuclear bomb while he's the head of the Department of Defense. You know, like there's a lot of different potential motivations in there. Seas and Ocean says, will the Soviet Union fall in 2 years because of Chernobyl disaster? There is rumors. I think what you're referring to is like, because the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore, right? And you're talking about it like this Chernobyl happened most recently. It sounds like you're a time traveler. CS says, did the wife have the baby yet? If she had, I would not be here, guys. That's how you will know that my wife had the baby, which is that my live streams will suddenly no longer be happening. Will be on, you know, semi-pertinent, not. I'll be on a spontaneous vacation, shall we say? Average Joe, so sorry, I've been ignoring the Twitch and the YouTube. Good to see you here again. Did I just hear an anti-centrist statement from you? What was my anti-centrist statement that you were so excited about hearing? Raph says, yeah, you're not Aaron Parnas, LMAO. He just had a baby and went directly to work, LOL. Yeah, you know, the fun thing about being a progressive male is that you get points for not being the worst guy in the world. You know, like I am just doing what I think any human being with empathy would do to take care of their pregnant wife. And everybody's like, you're the greatest man that's ever, I can't believe you go to all the doctor's appointments. You took her to the emergency room because she had ulcers and she was worried that she was having a fucking, placenta breach or some shit like that. You're a hero. You're a hero. You rub her head sometimes when she's got a headache. God, I can't. There should be more men like you. You know, I'm just like, I'm getting away with fucking murder here, guys. Triska says the bar for dads is embarrassing. Yeah, 100% accurate. OMC says if the Democrat wins, Maduro becomes again the dictator of Venezuela. No, I do not believe that is the policy of the Democratic Party. I do not believe the policy of the Democratic Party is to return Maduro to Venezuela. Dud says, can I ask if my stance is ignorant? Sure, it does. I should mention that there's no such thing as a dumb question. So, you know, I don't believe that anything that you can ask me is going to make me go, oh my God, you're so dumb. But yeah, go ahead and ask, Duds. Okay, Average Joe says something about accepting MAGA's extreme position as a starting point for moderation. You know, that is a position that I've always held, Average Joe. If you believe that is so outside of the realm of the things I've said in the past, then I'm fine with that. KLDO2 or Kid says, what's your opinion on Israel? I'm for the people and I'm against the government. Netanyahu's a war criminal. Independent organizations within Israel have said that what he is doing is a genocide on the people of Palestine. Dud says, I am tired of people feeding into the created division of the political parties and stand against it. I'm assuming that you're ending that with it. I don't think that's an ignorant stance, Duds. I do think you're kind of missing the forest for the trees, though, which means that it is true that the billionaire class and the right-wing propaganda machine are using political issues to divide people. But it is not true to say that politics at large is just a game of dividing the people, because there are wildly different things that happen depending on who is in charge, both on the federal and the state level. You know, if the platform of the Democratic Party is different than the platform of the Republican Party, if the governing histories of the two parties are different, then politics is still a very real thing. Now, it's true, again, that we should not let the billionaire class use politics as a means to divide us. But that doesn't mean that there's like no difference between the political parties, and that me coming on here and saying everybody should vote for Democrats and nobody should vote for Republicans is feeding into that division. I would just say that I believe that the data supports that statement, and if you are somebody who doesn't believe it, I'm down to engage with you and try to push you a little bit further in my direction. I'm not going to call you a jerk or anything for believing that my position is wrong. That's why I don't do debates. I just don't think that I don't believe in that kind of like fightiness being productive. Dud says, that's fair. I just understand this sickening hate spread to everyone. I think it makes a lot of sense, Duds, if you recognize that how much power the billionaire class has, how they have their fingers in all of media, including social media, that they're kind of pulling the strings. And, they're showing you, if you're a right-wing person who wants to fight a Democrat, they will put a Democrat, real or fake, in front of you to fight with. If you are a Democrat who wants to fight within your own party, like you believe the Democrats are too far to the left because you're a centrist, or you're a leftist and you believe the Democrats are too far to the right, they will put a person, again, real or fake, in front of you for you to fight with, to continue that narrative of us fighting amongst ourselves. So where everything on the internet is concerned, you have to take it with a massive grain of salt. And so anybody that I see on here that is like, trying to start a fight, either saying that I'm stupid because I'm too far to the left, or I'm too far to the right, or that all Democrats are stupid, or anything like that, then, I just am like, all right, you're a fake person, blocking you, getting out of here. I would much rather spend my time engaging with people who are real and asking questions in good faith, shit like that. So yeah, as with all of this stuff, it's incumbent upon us to be the change that we want to see in the world. Yeah, that's one of the narratives that I think we should be fighting, which is that politics is fake and the parties are the same, because that, again, helps the billionaire class. Duds, I recommend you reading a book called Dark Money if you really want to see like how deep the rot is with the billionaire class, like how much they're not. A lot of the times people imagine the billionaire class are kind of just like doing their own thing. They are very much pulling the strings of a lot of our political discourse, and who gets elected and who doesn't get elected, and what they do when they get elected, So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking that out. And there are other book recommendations on my Discord. If you don't want to write that down, you can just go to my Discord and check it out. It's called Dark Money. Dark Money, everybody. Let's see here. Okay, scrolling. Let's see here. Oh, hold on a second. We got a question from Alex here. What would you do if you were a billionaire? Excellent question, Alex. So first, I would fund voter outreach programs in every single district in America. There's an organization called Swing Left that is doing a deep canvassing dive called Ground Truth, which, canvassing and door knocking is a little flawed because it usually just happens like in the run up to election. You knock on someone's door, you ask them who they're voting for. Maybe you try to convince them a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, you're spending like 2 seconds with these people. Deep canvassing is like you're spending hours talking to the same people over and over again. That is what I would be doing in every single state. So attacking things from the political side, just get more Democrats elected and hopefully convince people to vote for more progressive Democrats in the primary. Maybe get our voter participation up a little bit more. It's kind of pathetic right now. That's number one. Number two is I kind of want to attack the billionaire class where they live and start a bunch of employee-owned companies. Like, that's my dream, is to partner with a bunch of people who can help me start an employee-owned version of McDonald's and Starbucks and Amazon and, you fucking name it, man. Like, employee-owned daycare for children and elder care for our grandparents. And then just like, if you look at other companies that are structured like this, they're doing great. Like Bob's Red Mill and Publix grocery stores, like, they're fucking killing it. The problem is that because they're employee owned, they don't dedicate so much of their time and energy to expanding and franchising the way that the shitty billionaire owned ones do. But I believe that if you had regular Starbucks and employee-owned Starbucks right next to each other, that people would go to employee-owned Starbucks. Like, I believe that people are attracted to that. So, yeah, those are like my main two, I would say. Okay, OMC says, oh, communist. So you say that like it's a bad thing. OMC. And it's like, if a company is employee owned, does that mean that America turns into Russia or China or Venezuela? Like, does that word mean bad to you because you view an employee owned company as being a slippery slope to a communist dictatorship like we saw in Russia and China? CS says, "What's the best way to convert a MAGA to a progressive?" That's a pretty big. It's a pretty big ask, CS. I don't think that we should have that lofty of a goal when we are talking to people. I just say just push them a little bit in the right direction. Take a MAGA person and turn them into a regular Republican. Take a Republican and turn them into a soft Republican voter. Take a soft Republican, turn them into an independent. Take a non-voter and turn them into a voter. You know, that's all we're looking for here. All right, Carmine says, the book that I always recommend to people when they ask how to convert somebody, how to convince somebody, is the book Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. And yeah, that is the book I was right about to recommend. Alex says, so Russia is what type of political party? Left, right, etc. Right. It is a right-wing political party. Yeah. China and Russia call themselves communists, but they are not. They are dictatorships, and authoritarian governments are antithetical to the philosophy of communism. Brian McKay says, why do you have blue eye contacts in? I do not. I just naturally have eyes that glow the soft, soul-like glow of 1,000 angels. It is something, it is one of the few things on my body that works well, are my eyeballs. Okay, Waco Mine says, people say it all the time when we ask questions about voting. If you did not vote for blank, who caused blank, it is very ignorant by them. Why do people not absorb knowledge? I'm not really sure what you... Oh, maybe I got to read up in order to get that. It's the people who choose not to vote that catch blame. Interesting. Average Joe says, if you like reading about how influential money is in politics, I recommend reading John Mearsheimer. Have you read any of his works? No, I have not. Did you recommend one to me recently? Because I feel like that name sounds familiar. OMC says, in China, there aren't employee-owned companies. There are private equity companies. I believe that is accurate, OMC. But you said, oh, communist, which made me feel like you just thought that it was bad to have employee-owned companies. Okay. Odinson says, former Trump supporter, conversations like these have really, truly helped me. Oh, thank you, Odinson. I appreciate that. BitNevo says, what is your most nefarious conspiracy theory regarding the right-wing extremism around the world? I mean, I think it's like, I think it's a real thing. I think the billionaire class is behind it. I think rich people are behind it. I think if there's like the official rankings of like who the richest person in the world is, and at any given moment it's like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or some fucking ding dong in some other country. But if you ask people who know, they will tell you that Vladimir Putin is the richest person on the planet, because he has just basically been putting 90 of every $100 that his country produces into his own pocket for a very long time. And so I believe that he has basically shown the billionaire class what the model is, or maybe they showed it to him. I don't know. And now every billionaire is like, oh yeah, crony authoritarian governments are how we become so fucking unbelievably wealthy that we can do whatever the fuck we want. We can hunt the poor for sport. We can have harems of children if we want. Like the sky's the fucking limit there. And so that's the playbook. That's what they're doing. Tito says, do you want Trump to be our emperor of this world? Are you for it? No. Trump should not be anything. He should not be president. He should not be emperor. He should not be dog catcher. Kekek says, do you think the Democrats are left enough? The Democratic Party is a big tent. And so I believe it should have people that are as far to the right as Chuck Schumer and people as far to the left as Mamdani and AOC. I personally believe that progressive politics and progressive politicians are better at getting things done and winning elections than centrists. And, sometimes the data shows you that centrists do better than progressives in certain districts or whatever. I think that given enough time and given enough messaging, that dynamic can switch. But I will still welcome anybody into the Democratic Party who wants to be a Democrat, even if I believe that they are, so far to the right that they're basically a Republican. CS says, "Are you sure the Saudi family isn't richer than Putin?" This is I haven't crunched the numbers. I'm just telling you what smart people have told me. It's possible. It's possible that they are, but yeah, I don't know. Tito says, "Who got the most power in the world? The billionaire class." Sophie says, "Should AOC run for president if she wants?" I don't know if I was, what do you call it? If I my little sister watches these live streams and she just texted me that she enjoyed my description of my own eyes. What were they talking about? AOC running for president. Yeah, if I was advising her, I might advise her to sit this one out, but I might be wrong. Like, this might be her striking while the iron is hot moment. Okay. User says billionaire class, but they're doing it in the parentheses to suggest that they are all Jews. User is, I'm going to give you an opportunity to correct the record and say that you are not making an anti-Semitic statement or conspiracy theory. Or you can just double down. Let me know. Are you the kind of anti-Semite that is willing to go on the record and say, yes, I'm being anti-Semitic? Or are you just trying to be cheeky and throw in your cheeky anti-Semitic comments and then dip? Let me know. Okay, let's see here. Lindsay, Muzzking, Triska, and Connie, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. Badger75 says, will America ever elect a woman? I believe so, yes. Could be sooner rather than later. P-Cow says, is that what the parentheses means? Yes, 100%. It is code for Jew. It is code for saying that person is Jew, and they're not saying it in a good way. They're not like, who had a fucking kick-ass bar mitzvah was Jarrett Berenstein. I didn't have a bar mitzvah, but that's, the example. Anyways, Jay Hernandez says, who will be the next to be fired? Some people are saying Tulsi, but nobody fucking knows. Okay, Austin says, just say Zionist and they will let you slide. I don't know what you mean by that, Austin. Jay Hernandez says, will anyone ever be prosecuted in the E-files? Yes, Jay, if we do the work of electing people who will do that. Right now, everybody that's in charge of the government is a Republican. Trump, everybody that he's appointed to cabinets, the judiciary has a supermajority of Republicans in the Supreme Court. Congress is in control of the Republican Party. And so they are the ones that are keeping any accountability for the people that are guilty in those files from happening. So replace all those Republicans with Democratic politicians, and I guarantee you we will start seeing accountability for those people. OMC says the Democrats run for an American without private companies. I do not believe that is accurate, OMC. User a whole bunch of numbers says, so you're selective reading the questions, good stuff. No, I read them as I see them. User a whole bunch of numbers. I got a lot of people to talk to on 3 different channels. The Majestic Majest says, do you like Kamala? I did like Kamala. I don't think that, she's definitely not my first choice for president. She wasn't my first choice in 2020 or 24 or 28. But I do think that she was very capable and intelligent, and I think that she would have been a pretty good president if she got elected. Okay, let's see here. Ivan Cisco says, when will the winners of the November elections be sworn in? January of next year? Yes, that is when that will happen. Mamadez says, is AI replacing the American workforce? I believe we're moving towards that direction, Mama Debs. How far we have gone is an open question. Party Boy says, I started recently too, and I've noticed the results. Hey, I'm not trying to be mean, but you're starting to bald. I know the state of my own hair. I've been on this for a long time, man. I've been taking finasteride since I've been 25. So this is just, this is happening. It's slower than it would have happened, but it is happening. I am 47. I'm doing a pretty good job. Odin Sons, can you speak more on the benefits of employee-owned businesses, please? Absolutely. So the issue with the current version of capitalism that exists in America today is that the owner class, the people that own the companies, the CEOs, the stockholders, the people that sit on boards of directors, they are the ones who get 99% of the profits from what the workers do. And that is it's sinister, it's unfair, and it leads to a a power imbalance between the working class and the owning class that allows them to do things like purchase the government and get shitty Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United, et cetera, et cetera. If you give the workers more power, then those profits then get spread more evenly to the people who are actually doing the work. That means that you don't have billionaires who are able to afford a dozen private jets and a dozen golden mega yachts and a dozen mega mansions and put their money into tax havens in the fucking Cayman Islands and shit like that and build their fucking massive underground bunkers in Hawaii for when the apocalypse happens. You don't have those people existing. You also don't have people who are poor existing because you have a sort of like more robust middle class. And not to say that no poor people exist, but we wouldn't have what's going on now. We wouldn't have people who can't afford to send their kids to college or own a home or pay for their medical care. You wouldn't have people who are worried about paying their electric bill or putting gas in their car or, et cetera, et cetera. That is what the kind of like Bidenomics philosophy was if we put more of this capital into the poor and the working class, they spend that money. If you give it to the billionaire class, they just put it in a fucking offshore account where they don't have to pay taxes on it ever. And then they get to will it to their shitty children who've never done anything in their entire fucking lives except for spend mommy and daddy's hard-earned money, hard-earned. So yeah, employee-owned companies could theoretically, and I mean, we kind of have seen examples of this, but without an example of it happening on a large scale, I can't really say that we know this would happen, but I'm 99% confident that this would happen if we had a more robust move towards employee-owned companies. Odin says, very fair. What would you say to the argument that the owners are the ones taking all the risk? That is to suggest that the working class does not take a risk as well. So the owner starts a company, they hire a bunch of people, that company goes bankrupt, the workers are about as fucked as the owners are. If you are in a position to borrow all the money or make all the money that you were to start that company, you're probably going to be better off than a person who desperately needed that paycheck that you can no longer afford to give them. That's number one. Number two is, sure, I think that you deserve some benefit from taking that risk, but right now it's too much. Right now it is too much, and it has been growing for a long, long time. Because it used to be that CEOs only made like 20 times what their lowest paid employee made. But if you check out like every decade since Reagan, like that number's just going up and up and up and up and up. Like I forget, I don't know what it is now, but I remember making a video about this like 10, 15 years ago, and the pay disparity was something like 500x times what the lowest paid employee makes. So the scales need to be rebalanced. They have to be shifted. They have to be changed. Because right now, it ain't working. It ain't working. We have worse income inequality now than there was during the Gilded Age. And that is an age that was named after how bad the income inequality was. Odin says, has never thought about it that way. Thanks, right? Thank you, Odin son. Day Glow Ginger says, and we risk our bodies and health to do our job. That is also 100% accurate. Sophie says, how are billionaires controlling the country? Ooh, that's a really big question, Sophie. Like, there are so many ways that they are controlling the country. First of all, they have engaged in hyper-monopolization, so they basically own every company that you can think of is basically owned by the exact same 10 shitty people. Because of Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United, they are able to spend unlimited amounts of money on political messaging and campaigning to try to convince people to vote for the people that they want to vote for. When they get those people in, they are able to convince the government that they just bought for to pass the bills that they want to pass. And those bills include things that weaken unions, that weaken regulations, that stop them from putting more pollution into our air and our water and our food. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the whole MAHA movement, but RF Kennedy's whole thing was about making our food more healthy and our air safer and our water safer. But the Trump administration has been loosening regulations on pollutants being in our air and our water and our food. They're giving legal, immunity to the producers of deadly pesticides that have been giving people cancer. Like, you know, watch the movie Erin Brockovich. Like, the reason why that company had to eventually pay out is because there were laws that said you're not allowed to give an entire fucking town cancer. The Republican Party has been actively getting rid of those laws to where if, you know, you are living in a town and all of a sudden everybody that you know is fucking dying of cancer and your fucking bones are falling apart on the inside of you, and you figure out, oh, this is because, you know, Monsanto was putting glyphosate up our fucking buttholes, basically, then you would, then according to the Republican Party, you would have no legal recourse for any of that whatsoever. They wouldn't have to pay shit. They wouldn't even have to stop doing it. You know? Oh, okay. Suffice to say, I hate when the narrative was spun when Mamdani said, tax the. I can't really see what the rest of that comment is, unfortunately. Okay, so I got to start wrapping things up. Me and the wife have an OB appointments today, but these were excellent questions today, everybody, and really great engagement. I really appreciate y'all being here. My deepest apologies to the Twitch and YouTube comments. I feel like I was particularly avoidant of you guys. It's not because of you. It's because I just got really deeply sucked into some of these TikTok engagements here. So yeah, but for everybody who's still watching, thank you again. If you want to support the show financially, if you like what I'm doing here and you want to keep on encouraging me to do it, there are ways that you can help fund this show. You don't have to, obviously. You know, we're all suffering in the cost of living crisis that is being made worse by the Trump administration. But if you have the dollars and you want to give them to a cause that you believe is doing the good work, then there are ways that you can do that. There are mechanisms that exist. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send emotes and bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, if you're already paying for Amazon Prime, you can use your account to subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you nothing, helps me out a ton. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And special thanks to all of my regular financial contributors: Muzz King, Pliff, Average Joe, It's the Rocketeer, Laura and Triska, the two Seans, D, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Schedule is generally updated consistently on my Twitch and TikTok and on my website calendar. I only mention that because my wife could give birth any day now, and so if you just don't see me one day, that'll probably be where you will see that information posted. Let's see here. Sophie says, we'll be putting Dark Money in my cart. Use my link on my Discord for it. I have a link for bookshop.org, so you're not giving money to Amazon by buying that book, Sophie. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, please reach out to me. I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to be a person that can help you be more informed and more involved in politics. So any way that I can do that, use me and abuse me, use me until you use me up. You can shoot me a DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my website, or you can hit me up on my Discord channel, and the link is in the bio for the Discord. The Discord is also great because there's a great community there. There's also threads for recommendations for books and podcasts, and also there's recommendations for civic actions that you can take if you want to be people that are helping what's going on in the world right now, and organizations that are already doing this work that desperately need people like you to volunteer your time and money to help them out. Like, there are already people doing this work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just join them, do something. We need to do this work. There are good people still in the government. There are good people still in the Department of Justice, but they need our help because they are outmatched right now. They don't have the resources. They don't have the political power of the worst actors at the moment. But we outnumber them by a lot. So if we do the work, we win. We do the work. We organize. We convince. We recruit. We boycott. We protest. We strike. We vote. That is how we get out of this, guys. That is how we get out of this. Alrighty, everybody. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. I will see you guys here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.